So Justin Trudeau made a major announcement in Canada about gun violence and the seizure of guns, the taking away of guns. Says Canada has a real gun problem. And of course, this all falls on the heels of what happened in Texas. And so people are coming quickly out of the woodwork to say, wait a second. And I'm of two minds of this, and we'll kind of like have a discussion about this, because normally I think his lockdown on freedom in Canada is absolutely awful. Making sure that people can't travel across borders if they don't have certain pharmaceuticals injected into their bodies, taking away and seizing people's bank accounts, taking on extra government powers is all absolutely awful, of course. And so he comes out with this announcement on handguns to great controversy and great fanfare. Let's listen to Herr Dictator.
We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns.
Sorry, does he have a little cowlick right here? Because, we always are on about how his hair is so perfect.
I wanted to point out the nodding bobbleheads behind him. So I want to see if we can keep playing that video there.
Yeah, play it again and look for the cowlick. See it off the... Yes, I'm right.
What does that mean, though, the cowlick? Anyway, so all the shaking bob... Well, why are they all in a mask? Like, what is going on? Like, they're all in a mask in Canada right now. Okay. And but he's not in a mask, so he's okay. So anyway, the reaction to this has been pretty fierce on both sides. So let me just show you just some both kind of different versions of this right now. So this is David Clayton, his piece. He says Trudeau shamelessly exploits U.S. tragedy and takes aim at legitimate gun owners.
That is a really stupid thing to say, though. Like, I'm shamelessly going to try not to get my people killed at the same time. How about I act fast and,
here's what he says. Here's his tweet about it. Is anxious to characterize his opposition as armed and violent, and he's intentionally creating a phony handgun crisis when none exists. And so then you have the Globe and Mail out with this piece, their editorial board. So I don't want to say firing back, because I don't know if they're aware of David Clayton or if they have any relationship with him at all or not. But this is what the opinion pages of the Globe and Mail have to say. Canada has a real gun violence problem, but it's mostly not the one that liberals want to talk about. And specifically talking about how the Statistics Canada report released last week says that since 2009, the per capita rate of firearms pointed at someone in the commission of a crime has nearly tripled, and the rate at which guns are fired with the intent to kill or wound is up 5-fold, and specifically talks about firearms-related crimes, mostly involving long guns, but it's in cities and suburbs where crime is most likely to involve a firearm, usually an easy-to-conceal handgun. StatScan says 63% of firearm-related violent crimes in urban areas involved handguns in 2020. So 63% of firearm-related violent crimes in urban areas involved handguns in 2020.
Well, Canada did have a mass shooting in 2020 in Nova Scotia where 23 people were killed. And after that, assault-style rifles were banned in Canada already. So now this next piece, which is handgun-related, the Canadian government says, well, handguns are responsible for 59% of gun violence since the year 2009. So, I hesitate to call this opportunistic when you see something awful happen to children and you realize, okay, there is gun violence in my own country. This is terrifying. I'm going to do something drastic about it.
Well, let's give a little context then to David's article here about this, because I think we're, showing both sides of this, and I'd love to hear our audience weigh in on this. So he says, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is again beating a dead horse by freezing handgun sales and threatening more gun control in a country where it's already virtually impossible to own a handgun. Have you ever tried to purchase a handgun? He says, look for the long gun registry to return because Trudeau knows gun owners are not his constituency and he's desperately looking to find support wherever he can, even if he has to exploit an American tragedy to do so. Again, Trudeau is showing how remarkably similar his political instincts are to that one-trick political pony, U.S. President Joe Biden, who similarly used the Robb Elementary School tragedy to peddle gun control and demonize supporters of Second Amendment rights. So what he's getting at, David, and this is a legitimate, I mean, this is absolutely legitimate. I'm from Philadelphia, where almost every violent crime is with an illegal gun. Like it's not legal handgun owners. It's illegal guns. It's illegal guns pouring across the border. That's exactly where they're coming from. It's illegal guns. And so this happens in city after city after city. So this idea that you're going to go after legitimate law-abiding citizens who get a handgun to protect themselves, and you're using this as an opportunity to score political points. I think that's what I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I think that's what he's getting at.
But you're giving this person platform to say these words, and he's doing the same thing that you hate, that I do to you when we have personal arguments, is impugning your intentions and saying, your intention, you meant to hurt my feelings when you did. Like, we don't know what his intentions are. He could legitimately be scared for his school-aged children. We don't know what his intentions are, right? There is gun violence in Canada. We don't know how this will play out statistically. We don't know what his intentions are. Like, this is not like the trucker convoy where we could see that he was refusing to speak to people and giving himself more power all the while. This is not the same thing. And I think you're just letting someone say that he's an opportunist when there is room here to legitimately be afraid of gun violence. And also this idea that, well, most crime happens with, illegal guns. Fine. Why doesn't this get duplicated in countries across Europe where firearms are not allowed? Why do these illegal guns not make their way into European countries and firearms and illegal gun violence happen?
And I don't know. And I don't know the deeper history of Canadian gun violence. But I know that they have no constitutional right to bear arms in the United States. So they don't have that, weighing over them. And you don't have these political divisions that line up this way. I think the argument, it fits into this narrative though about Trudeau and this idea that, hey, we'll come and we'll take your bank accounts. We'll curtail personal liberties. We'll make sure that we're forcing you to take jabs in order to drive your trucks across borders, et cetera, and to live your life. And we saw violent crackdowns on these people using guns. And this is the hypocrisy part too. It's like they have these violent crackdowns on individuals who are peaceful protests. We're gonna crack down on you with guns. Yes. So it's okay. Again, it's okay for them to use the guns, but it's not okay for you to protest your government and the tyranny that they saw from their government. And that's where...
But did they fire upon anybody? They had guns as an intimidation tactic, the same way, police do in many countries around the world in the airport, where citizens can't have guns, but authorities can.
Well, like President Biden showing up in Texas and surrounded by people with guns. At the same time, he's saying, you can't use them. You can't have them for protection. He's not saying you can't use them for protection, but making it much more difficult.
I think what this highlights, though, is that Trudeau has an executive power to do something like this. Joe Biden does too. He won't, right? And so there is something to be said about playing politics, but at the same time, there also is something to be said about just being incredibly terrified by last week's events and saying, if I don't do something about this and I had the chance to, how will that feel when I didn't protect
No, I'd love to hear from our Canadian viewers on this. I mean, we don't have to be Canadian to weigh in on a story like this, but I saw plenty of people on Twitter that are saying, hey, wow, you're doing what Joe Biden won't do. And then I saw an equal number of people saying, there goes that dictator, that tyrannical Trudeau once again, taking away personal freedoms. So I'd love to hear what you think about this. Drop us a comment below. Do you agree with David Creighton's point on this? Or do you kind of stand with where the Globe and Mail come down on this in their editorial board? I'd be curious to hear. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.